Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined this evening by co-host Matt Carter, and I'm just arriving home from PNC Arena after covering the 79-76 NC State win over number 17 North Carolina. Before we break down this game in podcast form here, this podcast episode is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Hunter Clausen a call today at 480-513-3992 or email Hunter directly at hclausen@jfqlending.com. That's hclausen@jfqlending.com. HCLAUSSEN@jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And while you're at it, head over to thewolfpacker.com and use promo code PACK60. That's promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial on all of your premium content, news, and analysis of everything NC State athletics. We are now into ACC play in men's and women's basketball, so be sure to use that promo code to take advantage of all the premium content that we have related to basketball, the bowl game coming up, and NC State fans should have plenty of reason to be excited about what is to come here, not just this year, but in the future. After tonight's performance, Coach Kevin Keatts gets his first win over rival North Carolina in PNC Arena tonight, of course, in front of limited fans. As one of the limited spectators that was in the building there, I will say that the heated rivalry aspect of this did not miss a beat. It was only missing about 19,000 people, but the couple hundred fans, parents, select people that were in the stands, they were very into this game. It was as heated as ever, and it was an incredibly competitive basketball game, a 40-minute game, and I think a good place to start, Matt. I got to take a little bit of time to appreciate my pregame prediction. First of all, you were the Ebenezer Scrooge, and you admitted it. And I believe you predicted a Carolina 8-point win going into tonight.
Might have been 9.
Look, you don't have to dig yourself a deeper hole than you're already in, Matt.
Sure.
But I will defend you in saying that even in my prediction, I said all logic suggests that North Carolina will win this game. If you considered all of the factors involved, consider the fact that NC State is now playing its third game off of a 2-week hiatus due to COVID cases within the program, contact tracing, what have you. Freshman guard Cam Hayes, fifth-year senior forward DJ Funderburk, and freshman center Ebenezer Duwana were all questionable game time decisions going into this game. Only Cam Hayes played. Funderburk and Duwana were not available tonight. So NC State went into this game incredibly thin in the front court. But nonetheless, I said in my prediction, this is a weird year. It's 2020. This is a State Carolina game unlike any other. Why not throw out logic? Why not NC State being able to force turnovers, knock down some threes? And I predicted a 79-75 win. I was 1 point off. So I guess I'll try better next time for our listeners at home. But Matt, just your instant reaction from that game. That was a game where you feel like once that was over, you have to take a deep exhale out, because that was whoever, whichever side you were on, if you weren't pulling for anybody, it was just a very highly contested basketball game between two, what appeared to me potential top 25 tournament teams tonight.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It's a lot funner if you're on the NC State side tonight, that's for sure. One stat that kind of jumps out to me, NC State led for 37 minutes and 48 seconds in this game. It trailed for the first 24 seconds. Carolina scored the first basket of the game. NC State then scored the next 4 or 6, I believe. After that, they scored the next 6 points. So UNC scored on its first possession. NC State scored the next 6 points, and it never trailed after that. And that included numerous times where UNC could have taken the lead. Numerous times they got it down to 1 point, which you and I were on the same wavelength. So kind of the key moment of the game was when, they let Andrew Playtech get a 3-point play on the baseline. And then, Playtech returned the favor with a bad foul on Devin Daniels' jumper, and Daniels made the jumper, and they were right back up to 4 points. It was part of a stretch where Devin Daniels scored 8 straight points. NC State. I felt like NC State at some point had to have a run in them in the second half. I kept waiting for that run to happen. And fortunately, it happened before UNC took the lead. And that's what really stood out to me is, aside from the fact that it should not have gone the last shot, what stood out to me was the number of opportunities UNC had to kind of complete the comeback, and the number of times NC State came up with a big defensive stop, a block shot, a steal, forcing a turnover, and getting the defensive rebound. And you and I both talked about we were extremely concerned about the rebounding in this game, and State lost the rebounding. That was to be expected. UNC going to out-rebound probably every single team on this schedule, except for a fluke game here or there. But 45-34 is not bad against UNC, especially when you're not playing with DJ Thunderbrook and you're going with a small lineup pretty much the entire game. To get 7 rebounds out of Darian Sebron off the bench, 5 rebounds from Devin Daniels, those were the kind of things, the little things that were huge in this game. And so it's one of those confidence building. You don't get a lot of them against UNC. And I also thought the freshmen showed up unafraid. Shaquille Moore was somewhat diplomatic about it after the game, but we can be honest. We know Cam Hayes and Shaquille Moore took this game to heart. They were in-state kids that, neither one of them were offered by UNC, and they played like they had a point to make. And you could see that out there as well. And so my last takeaway is the future is really bright with Sebron, Shaquille Moore, and Cam Hayes. I think you got 4-year type guys in those guys. You got 3-4-year players that are going to be very good college basketball players if they show up with the mentality they showed up tonight.
Well, you brought up a lot of really great points. The Carolina's ability to consistently come back in this game. There was several points where NC State, you talk about Carolina's opportunities to take a lead at some point in this game. Well, NC State had a lot of opportunities to put this game away, even in the first half. With less than 4 minutes to go, NC State had a 17-point lead, 46-29, and Carolina ends on, I think, a 13-3 run or something like that. They finished the half on a 9-0 run. NC State led 49-42 at halftime, but it felt like Carolina really had all the momentum going into the break. Any NC State fan watching at home probably thought to themselves, well, we know how this is going to end, right? NC State came out with their heavyweight punch to begin. They gave them their best effort. They had an opportunity to put them away. And then when Bates picked up that second foul in the first half and he had to come out for the rest of the half, it was a controversial call. Maybe could have been an offensive foul. Maybe could have been a defensive foul. He gets called for the block call, and he has to come out. And then Carolina was just able to take advantage of Bates's absence in the post. They have that big run. They come out in the second half, and again, multiple times pulling it within one possession. I mean, NC State then was able to pull off a run, starting with Daniels' 8 points by himself for NC State. I think it was a 13 or 14 point run basically for NC State. NC State had a 13-point lead with 5 minutes and 13 seconds to go, and it ends up being a game that comes down to a last-second miss by Carolina. NC State pulls away by 3 in the end, but just a really resilient performance, I thought. And then the rebounding, the goal was never to out-rebound Carolina. There was no way they were ever going to be able to out-rebound Carolina with just Manny Bates as the lone player on this roster available that was over 6'10". Carolina had 6 of those guys. And I thought they all, showed flashes. They were able to dominate at points, but NC State found a way to get some of those guys in foul trouble late somehow, some way. And the disparity, particularly on the offensive boards. I mean, I think there was one point before that last Carolina run in the first half. NC State was actually out rebounding Carolina in the first 15 or 16 minutes of that game. But you look at the offensive rebounding difference, 18-12 Carolina. You'll take that. Second chance points, 17-15 Carolina. That's a win for NC State. And so if you read any of our previews on the Wolfpacker.com earlier today, we said if NC State's going to win this game, the keys are going to be, can the Wolfpack force enough turnovers, convert those into fast break points, and B, can they knock down enough 3-point shots to create enough separation between itself and Carolina? Because Carolina's just not they're just not a good shooting team. I mean, their clear strength is in the front court. Carolina finishes the night 2 of 12 from beyond the arc, 17%. NC State finishes the night 8 of 17 from beyond the arc, 47%. And NC State forced 4 more turnovers. Carolina had 18, NC State had 14. So both wins in those categories, even though they didn't win the rebounding battle, that's still a win for the Wolfpack considering the disparity at that position. And as for, the bright future, I mean, Shaquille Moore was absolutely phenomenal tonight. He was a guy that showed a lot of flashes on defense in these first 5 games, and particularly, at times in the second half against St. Louis and in the Campbell game, you could see that he was getting more and more confidence on the court, but he came out after that first media timeout in the first half. I mean, I think he hit his first 3 3-pointers. He had double-digit points before he was on the court for even 2 minutes. I think he finishes the game with 17 points in 15 minutes on the court. So just an incredibly efficient outing for him on the offensive end, something we haven't seen from him yet. So it's great to see him come out of his shell there, and I thought he was phenomenal again on the defensive end. And Cam Hayes was kind of getting eased back into the lineup. He hadn't played in 3 weeks, basically. So he had limited minutes, but he made all of his shots. He was 3 for 3 from the field, 7 points, played solid D. So, this future backcourt for NC State, if these guys stick around, for a couple, 3 years, I mean, the future is very, very bright for this young Wolfpack backcourt. But let's talk about the resiliency in the second half, because I asked Devin about this, and you were going to text me to ask him about this. We were on the same wavelength, as you mentioned. But that one point where Carolina pulled within 1 point with less than 8 minutes to go, Daniels scores the next 8 points for the Wolfpack. It seemed like at that point in time, Keats, NC State's bench, Daniels himself just realized that Devin Daniels, the 5th-year senior guard on this team, kind of had to take over in a point where NC State was looking for some answers. And he really proved that he can step up and be a senior leader on this team and take the shots necessary to pull out gutsy wins like this. So just your thoughts on his performance in general and the veterans in the backcourt just being able to stick out this win.
Yeah, you knew early Daniels was on his game. I mean, it was pretty clear very early. And I thought NC State had a pretty good strategy early, and I give UNC credit for adjusting. It was very clear it was spreading UNC out, trying to get downhill on the penetration, create the middle on the ball screens and attack off the ball screens. It's hard for the big men to defend the pick and roll or the pick and drive, whatever you want to call it. And Daniels was doing very well going straight to the basket early. Then, of course, he got the 2 fouls. He picked up the second foul. And I thought Seabrand's play was kind of, more than the return of Hayes are going to get in. But I thought Seabrand gave him quality first half minutes in Daniels' absence. I actually think the second foul on Bates is what kind of opened the door for UNC to come back into the game. And, probably hard to see from the arena, but pretty clear the circle under the basket on the clock. So, he was set, but he was set too far under the basket. But yeah, Daniels, they needed that from Devin Daniels in the second half. Shaquille Moore gave him the big lift in the first half, and I think Devin Daniels gave him the second half. I kind of wanted to touch on a couple other things too. You mentioned the rebounding. UNC second chance points advantage was just 17-15. If you had told me before the game that second chance points were going to be 17-15, you'd take that any day of the week.
Maybe you changed that game prediction, Matt.
I would have changed that game prediction I made. And you mentioned the points off turnovers was 19 for NC. It really set up the way, and Manny deserves a lot of credit. He got the 2 fouls. That second foul was late in the first half. UNC went on the 9-0 run after the second foul. He only picked up one more foul, and he was able to stay on the court. And he had 14, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks. That was huge. A lot of people are going to get on Jericho Helms because he was 0 for 8 from the field, 0 for 3 from threes. No question. He stunk it up on offense. But he got Brooks, and Brooks went 5 for 14. That's the ACC preseason player of the year. Now, I don't buy that, but that's still the ACC preseason player of the year who did torture NC State last year. So a big improvement there. And the funny thing about this game is there's so much room for improvement for NC State. I think what we saw, other than maybe Brooks being a little bit better, we saw what UNC is in this game. With NC State, I'm looking at the numbers. NC State on layups, just layups, went 9 for 24 on layups. Shoot a better percentage on the bunnies. Of course, the free throw shooting. Braxton Beverly missed 4 in a row in the second half. They shot 11 for 20 at the free throw line. They clearly left points on the board on the court at the free throw line. And then no Thunderbird. I mean, Thunderbird is a crucial component to this team. I would argue NC State, left some on the court, playing without one of its best players, and beat a Carolina team that, while it got off to a slow start, considering who UNC is, at some point you just have to accept UNC for being what UNC is. This is about what you can expect from a good UNC performance. So again, there's another reason why maybe you can be a little bit more very optimistic coming out of this game. That I felt like NC State was a better team against St. Louis. They just ran out of gas. Straight up ran out of gas and was without a couple key players. To me, the biggest take out of this game is, at this point in time, NC State's a better basketball team than UNC.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair assessment. And, I think you could play that game 10 times. I think it could probably be a pretty even series without Thunderbird, but you add a Thunderbird back into the equation and the ceiling gets much higher for this NC State team because they were so thin in that front court. And, freshman Jalen Gibson, I know he was put out there a little bit early, but maybe just he wasn't really ready for that moment yet. And that's where DJ Thunderberg's presence really would have come in handy. Have an extra big body down there. Maybe Carolina doesn't have those, comeback opportunities there. But, I think this it's looking up. Bates, just to add to that, he played 20 minutes in the second half with just 1 foul. I mean, he went into halftime with 16 minutes. I think Bates would have played 40 minutes had he not picked up those 2 fouls in the first half, because he was clearly needed it in every second of that game against that team. But applaud him for his improvements over the offseason. He seems to be finding a rhythm, finding ways to defend without fouling, which was clearly an issue for him last year. He's taken the strides on offense and, is really becoming an elite ACC big for this NC State team, is adding another element to this team that he just didn't necessarily bring last year. So let's go ahead and give out our game balls, since I think we pretty much covered everybody there. I'll let you start. I think there's some pretty obvious decisions here. So you take one, I'll take the other.
Yeah, and I'll tell you real quick too. One thing that they do need to work on, and I thought this was an issue when UNC started back. UNC double team off of the ball screen, and you saw particularly Beverly had a little bit of a hard time coming at against the double team because Braxton Beverly doesn't normally have 3 turnovers in a game. So there's one area to work on, kind of that pressure defense. But also kudos to Beverly for 4 steals in this game. That's pretty amazing. But back to the game balls. Yeah, they're 2 obvious guys. I'll give it to the rookie. First time we're giving out game balls, so we might as well give out a first career game ball to Shaquille Moore. 6 of 11 shooting, 4 from 3-point range, 2 or 3 from the free throw line. The highlight of the game, the SportsCenter top 10 play, I'm sure. Maybe even I'll be curious where it comes out. And all of that within 15 minutes of playing time.
It was truly a jaw-dropping dunk. I mean, there's a really good picture out there. I'm sure if you're listening, you haven't seen it yet. Ethan Hyman of the News and Observer. I mean, it shows Shaq literally with his hand on the rim. And I mean, even the Carolinas players' reactions, they're just all mouths open, just can't believe what they're seeing. So just showing off that freaky athleticism.
Yeah, he gets my game ball. And the beauty of an NC State roster that Kevin Keith has is that kind of an any given night, right? It wasn't Jericho Helms tonight, but Shaquille Moore steps up. Maybe in another game, maybe Talander comes in and gets 3 or 4 threes in a game. That's the beauty of NC State's roster that he has constructed. Any given night, somebody should be able to step up for you. And tonight, that was more.
And before I give out my game ball, you mentioned Allen, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about him specifically necessarily with just 6 points, but we have been talking about leading up to this game. We're just waiting for him to get a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end, and clearly he's a great perimeter shooter when he's feeling it. He's got the touch. He didn't make a 3 tonight, but he's 2-5 from the field. But he really seemed to come out of his shell and had some good takes to the rim. At times was able to create some offense. So it was kind of an encouraging sign to see Allen get a little bit more aggressive on the offensive end, particularly in a game like this. But I'll give out my game ball. I really think that Manny Bates is deserving because he was so valuable and important. But I have to give my game ball to the senior. You gave yours to the rookie. I'm going to give mine to the 5th-year senior, Devin Daniels. 21 points, 8 of 13 from the field, 2 of 3 on 3-pointers. He's struggled with his 3-point shot in these last 2 games, but he found his stroke tonight. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. I mean, just, clutch. I mean, he came up big down the stretch. And, I know there was a lot of people online hoping to see more of Shaquille Moore there at times in the second half, because he was having such a good game. But you never know how a freshman is going to handle those pressure situations and in those moments. And with Daniels, there were several times where he felt really comfortable with the ball in his hands because he just finds a way to get into the post. And, sometimes it isn't the prettiest thing, but he has a knack for making these weird little floaters and hesitation, 10, 12 footers, drew that big foul on Playtech to start the, 8-point run that he had on his own. So Devin Daniels gets my game ball, and, good way for this NC State team to enter the holiday break going into Christmas. And their next scheduled game will be at home against Boston College on December 30th. So they'll have better part of 8 days to rest, unwind, and have a little bit of confidence heading into the rest of this ACC slate. So before you sign off of this podcast, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. Follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at the Wolfpacker. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on the Wolfpacker.com. And of course, please be sure to use that promo code PACK60 on the Wolfpacker.com for a free 60-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis. So Wolfpack fans, enjoy this Christmas gift that the men's basketball team has given you, a sweet, sweet win over rival North Carolina. And we will keep cranking out the content on the wolfpacker.com for you guys as the bowl game approaches and as the ACC play continues in men's college basketball. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.